Science fiction is one of my favorite genres, and I find that I consistently enjoy sci-fi films from the 80s more than those from any other decade. Even with modern technology, I still think that sci-fi films from the 80s are better thematically and aesthetically than anything else. These films combine the energetic aesthetic of pop culture in the 80s with artistic fears that pull from the Cold War and the rise of the computer to create something truly unique which still influences films today. With that, I'm going to look at some of my favorite 80s sci-fi films and determine what common elements make them so good. '80s sci-fi has a unique visual identity filled with bright colored lights and complex technology. These elements help the films stand out and provide this feeling of artifice to these worlds where technology has become so prevalent, but also reflect the neon color aesthetic of 80s pop culture. Combining 80s culture with advancing technology is a common theme in 80s sci-fi movies, both behind the scenes and in the stories of these movies. One of the most prominent elements I noticed visually in these films is use of amazing practical effects, both makeup and stop-motion characters in live-action films. The most groundbreaking, iconic special effects work in the 80s was done by Stan Winston, who worked on The Thing, Terminator, Aliens, and Predator. All of these characters that he worked on are incredibly creative and are a large part of what makes these films so special. The fact that the effects are all real as opposed to the computer-generated effects of later decades makes the work that much more impressive, especially in Terminator. This scene at the end of the film is my favorite scene in the movie because the metal skeleton coming up is so unexpected, and then the way it moves, partially due to being stop motion, makes it even more eerie and makes the scene so spectacular to me. Beyond just Stan Winston's work, practical effects help define the look of 80s sci-fi films. Films like RoboCop and The Fly, as much as the writing is great, the practical effects are what communicate what the film is all about and what makes these films so memorable to me. These effects are some of the last that are purely human-made before computer-generated effects became widely used in the 90s. So in a way, the practical effects in these films echo the fear of technology that is thematically present in the films. On the topic of writing, what makes 80s sci-fi films so great to me is the themes these films explore, with them primarily focusing on fears associated with the rise of computer technology and what that means for humans' place in the world. This first theme, the fear of the rise of computer technology, can be seen in films like Terminator and RoboCop. In these films, some sort of advanced technology gains power rapidly and threatens humanity in some way, whether that be the AI-powered robots of Skynet in Terminator or corrupt robot police in RoboCop. These films tackle a fear of the unknown, untapped power of computers and end with the resilience and ingenuity of human spirit serving to triumph over technological enemies. The other big theme of 80s sci-fi is one surrounding human identity in a world of technological innovation, something that can be seen in The Fly and Blade Runner. Both of these films follow characters that begin to question their identity, with Jeff Goldblum in The Fly becoming more and more of a human-insect hybrid, and Harrison Ford in Blade Runner tracking down replicants which are indistinguishable from human beings, leading the audience to question if Ford's character is a human or a replicant. These films raise the question of what it means to be a human in a world that's so driven by technology, especially one in which artificial intelligence can seemingly replicate a human being. Beyond just the technological advancements of the time, these questions of identity are incredibly profound and provide something deep for the audience to ponder after the film is over, a strength of these films which makes them much more than just a movie, but something that will be thought about into the future. As the future unfolds since the end of the 80s, the themes and aesthetics of 80s sci-fi have continued to be used and remade in modern films. Films like The Matrix and Ghost in the Shell both borrow the aesthetics of the 80s and tackle the same question of human identity that 80s science fiction does. Even more directly, the substance takes the ideas of The Fly and adapts them for a modern audience. The fear of technology can also be seen in more modern films, with Minority Report featuring a technology-fueled surveillance state, and Avatar featuring technology as a negative, destructive force that should be used carefully. Science fiction films of the 80s tackled interesting, deeply human themes and combined them with a unique, flashy aesthetic that makes for a unique combination, and in doing so cemented the 80s as the golden age of science fiction films. Although the 80s is my favorite decade for science fiction movies, there are tons of great sci-fi movies in other decades with tons of great films and directors that help define the genre. Be sure to comment your favorite science fiction movie or director, and make sure to subscribe for more film breakdowns weekly.